there've been a couple of there've been a couple of occasions when we've had a situation. He and I agreed. We saw it eye to eye biblically, but then when push came to shove, he just folded. I think my conviction is he allowed the other elder to to I guess sway him to just do nothing. And it was really a situation where you're leading by fear. And so we've had a couple of instances like that in the last 18 months or so, and he just won't stand. And the other guy he's not real knowledgeable, and I think he was put in to I think he was put in to prevent if one of the brothers passed away that have an eldership. And sometimes if you don't have qualified men, best thing to do is don't have an eldership. But
No.
but nonetheless, so that's kind of where we are. And Roger and I, we work together with this school and schools under the oversight of Olive Branch, and so we would like to transition that out. And I'd say there's a real strong possibility that I'm just gonna I'm gonna leave, and I want to leave I want to leave, I want to take the high road and leave. I want to be kind but firm in my convictions. I don't want to cause any trouble, but I'm not going to condone an unbiblical leadership. So anyway, I guess we're just kind of looking for some feedback, or some maybe you've got some ideas that might be helpful.
Where does that head elder get his power?
I think he gets it because for a long time, I would say the brother who I told you has not stood over the past couple of years when situations have arisen. He was put in about 10 years ago. He is a very knowledgeable Bible student. He's an excellent teacher. He bivocationally preached for about 25 years. And I mean, he was brought up in a good home, rock solid, family rock solid, grew up at Getwell in Memphis. But when people would when people would approach him and ask him about something, his response was, "Go see the other elder. Go ask him." And so I want to believe that in doing that, what happened was it sort of built a monster. And now it may have already been there, but this certainly fed the monster. And so like he's just sort of assumed, and he's assumed this power, and no one has challenged him. I did have a former deacon tell me that he talked to this brother. This brother's name's Billy, but he had talked to Billy about the fact that he's a good man, but just doesn't have courage. And he said that Billy admitted to him that the brother who is considered the head elder, his name's Do. He pretty much conceded that fact, but he never, offered any, no response as to, challenging it or saying anything about it. I mean, it's just not his style, unfortunately.
Are any of the members aware of the situation?
Yes, there are members who are aware of it. Matter of fact, I had a deacon that talked to me. Well, I've had two deacons that have talked to me. One deacon approached me maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago and was very concerned about what he sees, and had told me that he had written a letter, or had written down on paper, I guess, his concerns, and I guess his what he believed to be were disqualifiers for this brother serving as an elder. So there are a few. I had another brother called me. I've been out of town preaching this week, and another brother called me this week, and he understands the situation. And uh, but I've been around long enough to know that you got a lot of brethren. They know the truth, they believe the truth, but when push comes to shove, they're just not real strong. They're just not gonna. Like Paul when he said, "At my first defense, no man stood with me; all men forsook me."
Yes.
So you've got a lot of folks that they're good people, but they just don't want to get involved, and they sure don't want to challenge an elder. And 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 so I sort of think, I sort of think I had a lady call me, or rather text me this morning. I would say she's very strong in her biblical uh, beliefs. And she said, I want you to know I appreciate you preaching the truth, no matter what the consequences are. And I appreciate her saying that. And I told her so. But you have people that will say that, but and I haven't said a word to her about any of this, but they'll say that. But are you willing to do something, to stand up and to just express your convictions and concerns? And I told one of the deacons, I told him, I texted him back, and I said, look, unless you have a good number of people that feel this way, I said it's going to be really hard to bring about any change. Now, I could be wrong, but that's just kind of my assessment right now.
Was this man here when you came 18 years ago?
Yes, he was. Well,
Was
when,
he an elder then?
he was when I I guess when I initially met, there were two. He was not an elder when I met with the incumbent elders about the work. This was like in August of 2007, and I met with them one Saturday morning, and they asked me. They said, "When could you start?" And so I started the next month. And one of the elders that I spoke to he'd been a long time elder, and his wife died of cancer. And so the week that I started, he stepped out, and they put two new elders in, and this Dio was one of them. The other brother that was put in retired and moved up toward Jackson, Tennessee, and so, but he became an elder basically the same time that I became the preacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had a good relationship. I mean the eldership. To their credit, they're very good to me. They're very generous. They allow me the latitude to preach, to teach, to travel. There are no restrictions on my preaching and teaching, television, radio work. They've always been supportive of that. So in a lot of ways, it's a great situation. Other than just we got some problems in the eldership.
May I say
So,
something? I'm sorry. Go
yeah.
ahead, kid. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
Well,
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say one of the things that Mike brought up that I didn't hear him say today, he said that there are three elders, and I think only one of them knows how much money the church has. Is that right, Mike?
That's well, I know Billy doesn't know. The other brother, one of the deacons talked to him, and the impression I got was he did not know. So that would be correct.
So the situation that I was thinking about was um, if the other elders don't know how much money the church has, what would prevent them from asking Do? Does he not present a budget with the detail? I know you said he puts out a sheet of the works, but does he not ask? I would ask Billy, does Do ever show you a financial sheet? And you ought to ask for it. Now that's just a given as far as I'm concerned. And it just kind of, and part of this reason I'm here, Jerry, is because they do receive money for our school. And there's a question about some money that came in that I can't get an answer to. And that's another issue. But I just thought about that, Mike.
Well, they they have a budget, and but they do not publish a financial report, and that's been a problem among a lot of the members. Matter of fact, there are members that do not give or do not give all of their contribution because they don't know where the money's going. And I don't know what the cloak of secrecy is. I mean, the church is not a secret organization. It ought to be the most transparent organization in the world. And you would think that the other elders, I mean, I wouldn't serve in a situation if I didn't know what the financials were as an elder. And so, I mean, you would think that they would understand they have some measure of responsibility and they would take it upon themselves to do it. Now, Billy told me, he said, well, I try to focus on the spiritual. And I said, I understand that. That's your role. I said, I can make a case that an elder doesn't even need to be worried about the money. I said, but that's another matter. But it does fall under your oversight. You are responsible. You don't have to deal with it every day, but you do have to give an account for it one day for how it's used or not used, which is a whole nother matter. And that is what sort of started some of this. I found out we were sitting on $405,000, and I'm like, we're not in the banking business, brethren. Either we're in the banking business or we're in the Lord's business. We need to make a decision. Which one is it? But again, that goes back to this one elder who was controlling and protective of that money. And so that's kind of where we stand.
So what is the conflict right now that's got folks bothered? Is there some?
Well, I think the conflict is that there are people that know that you have one man that's running the show. And I've been told that some members have said, well, every church has a head elder and just kind of the way it is, and which, that doesn't make it right. But so I would say that, and then just the fact that, we're sitting on a whole lot of money. I don't have a problem with an emergency fund, but I don't think we need to sit on excessive amounts of money. I think, we're supposed to be using it for the cause it's what's given for. And so I think, the big deal is, you've got what I would call an unbiblical eldership. If you have one man that's exercising dominion over the work, I don't think that fits the biblical model.
Do you meet with them on a regular basis?
No, I do not.
Do they not want you, or you don't want to? How's that worked out?
Uh, well, basically, if they get themselves in a tight place, then they want my help. Outside of that, I don't ever meet with them. They never asked me to meet with them.
Have you talked with him about your concerns?
Well, I was going to.
Are you talking about them or one, Jerry?
Well, I don't know.
Well, I was told, and then again, this is this week, the deacon that had a conversation with the other elder who said he didn't know what the finances really are either. He told this deacon that he had approached this subject with DO, and that basically DO just kind of blows it off, brushes it to the side. And let me mention this too. When I was in Branson last month, one of the elders from the Forest Hill Church here in town, or in Memphis, I was in my class, and so he waited for me. And when I got out of class, he wanted to talk to me, and he expressed concern about this problem that we have at Olive Branch, that we have an elder that is exercising more power than he ought to. And so, and he was trying to be very charitable. He said, it could have been something that like Billy sending people to, somebody ask him a question, go see Do, and he said it could have just kind of evolved, and as a result of that, he, I don't know if that's the case or not, but so I mean, it's not something that I mean, you got an elder from another church that knows about it.
That's interesting. I wonder how he found out.
I would say through a member,
Okay.
but I would say for sure. Now I think he knows this brother, and he knows.
I'll be
I guess
right
he knows,
back. Go ahead and talk. Be right back.
but I think he knows this brother as well, and I think he knows the history. I would assume to some extent. I'm just.
Do the elders ever meet with the deacons?
Oh, they do.
Is that ever a problem? Do they micromanage, or are the deacons pretty well over their ministries? How does that work?
Well, I I think again when they have meetings, I think Do sort of takes the lead in those meetings, and I've been told that when he has been asked certain questions about money or whatever, he pretty much shuts them down and says that's none of their business. Uh, and he has a tendency to meddle, particularly in anything related to the building. Uh, the deacon that's over the building has a hard time dealing with him because he wants to I guess micromanage him on what to do, and I'm surprised the guy puts up with it personally.
So, what concerns you most about this man? Has he got in your way, or opposed you, or hindered you? How are you and him?
Still there, Mike? His mic is on, but I don't hear him. Let me text him.
Okay.
His wife set this up, and Mike's not real tech savvy. Um,
Well, he looks pretty smooth on TV. He must have good tech people.
oh, he doesn't do that. Yeah, he does. Um, yeah. Let's see what he says. He hasn't responded. Well, the only reason I'm here is because of the school's involvement. They really don't oversee our school. They just handle money. And the reason I did that, I think I talked to you about the other day, is that when we started the school, money was coming to me, and that wasn't good. I mean, I wasn't mishandling it, but some people would see it better under an eldership. And really, it's just on paper. If you get right down, they do take the money in. If I need money, they'll send it to me. I've not had any trouble with them except for one contribution that was given, and Mike's going to hopefully get that straightened out. The There was something that I was hoping Mike would share with you about a program he was doing, and he will tell you, and he told me, and all this is confidential. It's not going anywhere. Um, they were giving $750 a month. I think it was a TV program. It might have been radio. Either way, after that sermon last Sunday, that money was cut by that one elder, and he did not talk to the other two elders about it. So this is part of what he's dealing with. Um, uh, Phone shut down. Sorry. Just let me know what Brother Jerry thinks. Okay. So I don't know what happened here. Um, okay, I'm recording this. Nobody will see it except Mike. So after hearing everything that he said, you could just give him some advice, or you might need to talk to him by phone sometimes. That'd be your call. Um, he is thinking about leaving. I did have a question. When Paul says in 1 Timothy 5 and verse 20 about elders, those who are sinning, rebuke in the presence of all, does this situation potentially merit that?
Well, if he's sinning, it does.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. But it's not just him. If the other elders, you ask the question, you know, how did this come about? Well, the other elders have allowed it, and I talked to Mike. I said, the other two elders are the ones who need to confront him about this. But if they're happy with it, they're not going to.
yeah, that's one of the questions I like to ask. And I just kind of turning that over in my mind. How would you approach it? I don't think I would approach him by himself. I think my always have my wastebasket. If what I say is not worth taking home, you just put it in the wastebasket. Uh, but potentially just have a meeting at very low key because he can't make him do anything and just express concern. How did he find out that the money was cut?
Well, yeah. He said Mike texted back, said the phone died. I don't know if they're going to reconnect him or not. Let's see. Um, okay. Um, Let me ask them if they can reconnect right quick
Okay.
because you're asking questions that really need to be either answered, one on one or on a phone call later. Uh, this is the reason I wanted you on here because I knew that you've been dealing with this kind of thing for years and gained a lot of insight and know the right questions to ask. Um, well, I don't know how to get. I'm asking Nancy if they can reconnect. Let's see what she says. She said she'd try.
Okay.
Maybe the phone battery went dead. Um, you said Mike said something that kind of turned on a light bulb in my mind. Actually, he got hired to work under one eldership, and then after he got there, he's under another eldership. And I know we don't know any better sometimes, Jerry. We're not experienced, and you just say, well, okay. But you've made a point that I think is valid. He was no longer working for the eldership that hired him. And so my thoughts were, okay, let's have another meeting because this is not the eldership I agreed to work with. But how many preachers know to ask that question? Probably very few,
Yeah.
probably don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Um, okay, admit. Okay,
Here we go.
your mic is off, Mike.
He's muted. There we
Okay,
go.
there we go.
Got it?
Yeah.
Now we got audio and video.
How about that? You got the first part. You got the video.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess just looking for some wise wise advice.
Well, the best thing I can do is just look at alternatives and just thinking about this. One of the things I've done in reading about leadership, and I think it's biblical, you ever hear of family systems that ring a bell with you?
No, sir.
A fellow named Murray Bowen grew up in Waverly, Tennessee. He dealt with people. He was a psychiatrist and treated schizophrenics.
Mm-hmm.
And they would bring usually a young person into his clinic, and he'd work with them 2 or 3 months, and 2 or 3 months, and they'd go back home good shape.
Uh-huh.
And then about 6 months, here they come back again. They'd do that again. And he said, "What's going on here? They're fine." And so he started hospitalizing the whole family.
Hmm.
Got a lot better results.
Uh-huh.
And so he came up with these observations, and he's certainly not a Christian,
Uh-huh.
but he came up with some interesting observations. One of them is the identified patient is rarely the cause of the problem, but where the symptoms of the group surface.
Okay.
And see, in 1 Corinthians 5, Paul said, you got a man there's committing fornication. And it's not just plain old vanilla fornication. It's kind even Gentiles wouldn't tolerate. It's sure enough fornication.
Yeah.
But he said, here's what I'm concerned about. You like it that way. You have not mourned. And
Right.
you're not doing a cotton picking thing about it, and it's going to destroy the church.
Uh-huh.
Not just because of what this man's doing, but because of what you're not doing. You like it the way it is. And so I often ask brethren, I wonder why you like it that way. So one of the things that's kind of been going over in my mind, and you're of course the one to make the call. I showed Roger my wastebasket. I always like to have that idea. I'll give you some ideas. If it's not worth taking home, throw it in the wastebasket.
Yes, sir.
But you might consider, I like to get really low key and talk so low that they have strain to hear me, so they can't accuse me of hollering. Is say, I'm concerned about what's going on here. What can you explain that to me? I'm confused.
Uh-huh.
And if they recognize there's a problem there, I wonder why y'all like it that way.
Uh-huh.
What happens, seeing what Bowen said, and I think it's a good principle. You probably heard this thing. I tell you what's going to take to get this church straightened out: a few good
Men.
Funerals.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's true too. I've heard that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. But I've heard that said over and over again. Here's the problem. Well, what I do when people tell me that, I like to have shirts with 2 pockets. I need one for my glasses and one for my 3x5 cards.
Uh-huh.
So I like to get out my car and say, well, when would you like to see this church get straightened out? And they say, well, just as quick as possible. Okay, let's make a list. Whose funeral would you like to attend next week? Here's the problem with that solution. You go to the funeral and go out to the cemetery to be with the family while they're being buried. And on the way back, you got 2 men saying, I'll take his place.
Yeah.
They're ready to take his place. The church made him. I think churches have the leadership that they deserve. They have the leadership that they have trained. They have the leadership they prayed for. They have the leadership that they've encouraged.
Yeah, sounds a lot. Reminds me a lot of what Brother Camp said.
What's that?
Same thing. What
Okay.
you in his book, Principles and Perils of Leadership.
Yeah. And so the best time to start training leadership is 2 generations ago.
Yeah.
And if we hadn't done that, we better get started today, because that's about the earliest time we can start. And so you have to work with what you have. So if there's any way to do it, I like to find out as much as I can about the history. That's what I was doing today. Since 2010, when I go work with the church, I'm a quick turnover man now. I'm with my 11th congregation the last 18 years. And so one of the things I do when I go into a church, I start meeting with all live past elders.
Uh-huh.
And do a 2-page questionnaire. And I type all those out, don't tell who said it, but I hand that in to the elders. And it's interesting what folks will tell you.
Sure.
I think there's a biblical principle: train up an elder in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Train up a elder in the way he should not go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. So I like to see how they've been trained, and they've usually been trained by the folks they served under.
You know what? You just triggered a thought in my mind. One of the elders who's deceased now, but who was an elder there for many, many years, had the reputation of being sort of a lead elder, head elder, is my understanding. And the brother today who is demonstrating a similar pattern had said he wouldn't serve with this brother because of whatever. But the thought occurred to me at some point. I thought, he would be horrified to realize that
That's it.
he's exactly the man he didn't want to be.
That's it. See what happens. They come in. When I was at Barrish Chapel, that was my last full-time work. They interviewed me 4 years before, and I didn't think it was the right time to go, and I didn't. So they got somebody else who was an unintentional interim after a preacher that a lot of folks liked. So they was going to throw away him, period.
Uh-huh.
But then they called and I started talking. I started doing a history. They had a fuss every 2 years for a decade. They had the fuss of 86, fuss of 88, fuss of 90, fuss of 92. I went 93. We had the fuss of 95. And and that's exactly what happens. So we got 4 new elders, and the church picked them because none of the elders could pick them.
Uh-huh.
My strong recommendation, I think biblically principle, the church selects and leaders ordain. Acts chapter 6.
I agree.
You go back to Exodus 18, it said Moses' father-in-law said, you choose wise men. So Moses chose those men. So, well, wait a minute, that says Moses. Yeah. But you go to read a good commentary on that, which is Deuteronomy 1. And Moses spoke to all Israel. And he said, I told you to choose your leaders, and I ordained them. And it says the same thing it does in Acts 5, the saying pleased the whole multitude.
Yeah.
But somebody says the biggest miracle in the whole Bible, if you can please everybody. So we chose those 4 men, and 3 years later, they were ready to appoint additional leaders. And they said, who can we get? And I said, what do you mean, who can you get? And they said, well, don't you think we need more? I said, I sure do. They said, well, don't you think we need to talk to some people? I said, who chose you? And they said, the church did. I said, do you think they did a good job? That's a loaded question. And they said, yes. I said, well, I do too. I said, you're 4 of the finest men I've ever served. And you've done a good job. And they were one of the finest elderships I've ever served with. Good men. And I said, do you think they're 3 years dumber than they were when y'all started 3 years ago? I said, I don't think y'all did that bad a job. And so you know what they did? They backed out and they let the chairman of the last search team for elders preside at a men's meeting to select another, and they let the church select and they ordained. What happens? That's where I did my first eldership funeral. We started looking for another elder, and I asked them, I said, y'all going to have a funeral for this eldership? And they said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, Paul said all he knew was Christ and him crucified. The gospel is death, burial, and resurrection. And so my observation is when you get a new elder, you don't get a new elder, you get junior elders and trainees. That's
correct.
Observation. Second observation, when you get a new elder, you get a new group, you get a new eldership. You have a beaker with a element, a chemical in it, and you put another chemical, 1 drop of it. You don't just have 1 more drop of stuff, you have a new compound.
Mm-hmm.
And so why not formalize this and let's have a death, burial, and resurrection. Let this eldership die so that another eldership can rise up and be better than the one you have now. So we did. We had a 3-hour funeral. And But what happens, many of these junior elders come in and they are overruled and ignored.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, when these folks start dropping out, they say, okay, it's my time. And they, like you say, they could become exactly what they resented 10 years ago.
That's right.
And so what I've tried to do is to tell some parables and try to get people to see that. And the best thing came out of the eldership funeral. I asked them that night, I said, when this new elder comes in, are you going to let him make a difference? You're going to make him do everything like you did. And here's what they said. We'll let him change some things, but some things we won't let him change. I said, well, are you going to tell him about that up front, or are you going to surprise him when he gets here? And so they came up with two lists. One, our non-negotiables.
Okay.
Here's 4 or 5 things you're not going to change. Here's 3 pages of the way we do stuff, but that's just matters of opinion, and we'd be glad to consider that. Non-negotiables, we're going to do what the Bible says. We're not going to negotiate on that. Number 2, we're going to remain united on group decisions. We're not going to split. And so I think when folks start seeing some of that, I found it helpful. And what the thing I've come up with, if you, and again, you consider whether you can do it, if you have a specific concern of what this eldership's doing, and whatever they're allowing him to do is an eldership thing because they're allowing him to do it.
Uh-huh.
Just say, here's something that's concerned about me. Roger said maybe they've dropped some support. Is that right? Of a TV program, or?
Yes, yes.
And how'd you find out about that?
Well, one of the elders came in and had talked to me about. Well, he asked me about the contract, and then we one program's on ABC, the other's on uh, I guess you would say a community type cable access
Uh-huh.
channel. And so the ABC one much more expensive, the community access far less. And so the elder came in and he asked me about the contract. I told him, you got a 30-day out, and he said, well, we're kind of duplicating efforts, and so I got the impression, they wanted to drop it because of, my gut feel was because of the money, but he never, and I'd even asked him about concerns monetarily, and he said we haven't made any decisions about dropping any works. And then I found out last Monday night, I got a call from a brother that served as the liaison between Lighthouse Media and what we do. And he said he got a call from this elder DO and said, we're dropping the program in 30 days. And so that's how I found out about it.
Have you talked to him about that?
Yeah, I called Billy, who had the conference with me. And I asked him, I said, was this an eldership decision? And I don't think he ever really answered that, but I guess he seemed to think that I just assumed that they were going to do it, drop it, and maybe I should have assumed that. I had the feel they were going to do it, but again, I was also under the impression you weren't going to drop any works until, at that point. And so to me, when you drop a television program, you just dropped a work. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And so, again, my concern is, you're cutting a work when you have plenty of money in the bank. If you think it's duplicating efforts, at least take that money and put it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how I think.
So, do you ever meet with elders? Do you have to ask permission, or how do you get in?
I mean, if I told them I wanted to meet, they would meet.
Okay. I tell some people elders have the Esther rule. You come in, if they extend the rod, you live. If they don't, you die.
You're right. You're right. Right.
I wanted to ask something that maybe would clarify, Mike. I think we talked about this the other day. I know we've been talking about finances, and I can tell you my experience when it comes to money with our school. If I talk to Brother Sasser, he'll say, well, you need to talk to DO about that. And I can understand if DO's a treasurer and such. But another point is, are they also not cohesive, or does Billy, I mean, does Dio work as a head elder in spiritual matters? Or if they had to deal with disfellowship, or, have to, how do they deal with the spiritual matters? Are they a united front, or is Dio a head elder in that too?
Well, I think based on what I've seen, I think Do's the one that ultimately, I think he is the one who pushes for what he wants the outcome to be. That's why I said that, Billy, I've seen two instances when Billy could have stood. He and I agreed biblically on the matter. And then when the eldership met, he folded. He wouldn't stand. And look, I understand you got to be united, but at the same time, I feel like, if you have a good biblical reason for what you think, you need to stand firm. And this was a situation that I felt like, uh, I think here was the deal. I think they were leading by fear, and the fear was that if we make a certain decision, then we're going to lose people. And so rather than losing people, the best thing to do is don't do anything and just hope and pray it goes away.
Well, but my question was, if they make those decisions, he,
I think his voice is the unanimous voice. Whatever he wants, I think that's what happens. And I
I,
think
I would ask Billy about that, but Jerry said he would not meet. What did you say about when we lost connection? Or was it before, about meeting with the elders? What did you say?
Well, you first think of Matthew 18:15, but this is not a personal issue. This is an eldership issue. Even though he's the head elder because the whole group gives him that power. And so I think it's why do they like it that way? If the other two didn't like it that way, he wouldn't be that way.
exactly.
Yeah. And so I think if I were going to do it, I would just go in and try to be kind of low key. And I like the Joshua matter when you get into talking about things. Joshua said, "I need to talk to you. I really think you need to fear the Lord, serve him in sincerity and truth, put away the gods which your father served on the other side of the river, serve the Lord." But I could be wrong about that, because what I think is right, if you may think it's evil.
Yeah,
And if you think it's evil, you got lots of choices. See, a lot of people say, "Oh, no, 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 beep, 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 beep." Don't even mention that word. Like, uh, just, you can't do that. Well, sure you can. People say, you can't get a divorce. Well, you can. Whole thousands of folks do it every year.
that's right.
Doesn't mean it's right, but you can.
That's right.
And so if what I think is right, you think's evil, you got lots of choices. First of all, the other gods in Egypt, that's 10. And if that's not enough, you got the gods of the Amorites, that's a whole bunch more. You got lots of choices. Now, I'm not taking a Gallup poll trying to decide what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
When we get my house, we're going to be right here.
that's right.
And then when they said they'd do it, he said, I doubt that. I don't think you'd do it. He challenged them on that. And so I like to go in and ask folks, here's what I really think. But sometimes I don't see it right. So I'd like to hear what you think. But here's what I think.
Yeah,
And just want to talk with you about it and see what you think.
I think that's good advice.
And here's my concern, but I may not need to be concerned. See, I may misunderstand the whole thing.
Yeah,
Here's a scripture that's really helped me in the last several years. It's been there probably longer than I'm old, since it's in the book of Proverbs. Uh, why do people do what they do? People do what they do because they think that's the best thing for them to do today. That's why this fellow's doing what he's doing.
yeah.
Every way of a man is right in his own But the Lord weighs the heart, but he really thinks it's the best thing to do.
That's right.
And that helps me approach people better. In fact, I talked about this Wednesday night. I was speaking on gossip. You know why people gossip? They think that's a wonderful thing to do today. It's fun. I'm really trying to help people out. I'm just trying to warn you about all these bad folks out here. And then I asked them, have you ever done anything that you thought was the best thing to do? And 2, 3 days later said, no, that wasn't the best thing to do. How did you want to be treated? So I treat people like I want to be treated when I do wrong things, which I thought was the best thing to do, which aren't. And so go in and try to understand the person better, because I got another theory that I have, that people don't sin because they think about sinning. They sin because they don't think about sinning enough. Need to look at choices and consequences and choices and consequences. A lot of people just jump into it because it's easy or it's fun, and they don't think about the consequences.
Sure.
And so I like to say, have you thought about this?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what you're doing now. I'm just trying to find out. I may be all off base. I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from. So that's just some of the thoughts I've had since we've
Well,
been.
let me tell you, it's been very insightful, and I want you to know I appreciate your time and I appreciate your wisdom. I see a lot of wisdom in what you say, and it helps me in a lot of ways. I think going forward, particularly, and I think the approach that you set out would be the wise model to follow.
I like to practice and again, they've been years getting into this thing. You're not going to solve it in a 15-minute elder meeting.
True.
And if you start getting into a bind, say, well, why don't we think about this and get back together?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I find my temperature rising, as they
Sure.
always
I understand. Well, that's do.
So that's some of my thoughts.
Well, uh, I really appreciate you taking some time
Oh, glad to.
to help, and I'm certainly glad to meet you, and I appreciate what you do, and it makes everything you said makes sense.
Could I do a commercial?
Yes, sir.
Have you heard about my podcast?
I have not.
Okay, I started a podcast a year ago. It's called Gleaning Mustard Seeds.
Okay.
Do you listen to any podcasts?
Yes.
Okay. The first rule is try not to learn very much. And that'll be easy with me talking, and they average less than 10 minutes each. And
Okay.
it's just weird stuff I've thought about.
Okay.
Had a cousin and asked me if I was writing down all my stories. I said, no, I don't like to write that much. And I got thinking, I really like to talk. I wouldn't mind talking. And so it's on a lot of different things. First one is the introduction. Second one is about I'm a barefoot runner. If it's 50 degrees and above, I run without shoes. And it's on 4 questions the lady asked me one day, and I'm gonna present it to our overcomer group Sunday at lunch.
Uh-huh.
She asked me, do you know where you're going? Are you lost? Does anybody know where you are? And do you need a ride? That'll preach.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right, the next 6 are on family systems, which I was talking about. That's been really, really good for me.
Mm-hmm.
We like it the way it is better than what it would take to change it. And then I got some other interesting topics. The best day of the week to fire a preacher. I think I figured that out after I was fired December 19, 1976 at 10:20 between Bible school and worship. I think Sunday is not the best day of the week, so I'll suggest another day.
I like that.
And then I told one this Monday was I was working with a church and mentioned that I was getting my buzz haircut for the year, and the elder told me to bring that up in the elders meeting. I said, what? And he said, yeah, I think they'd appreciate that. I said, okay. Met with them every Wednesday night. And I brought it up, and they said, we really appreciate that. And we would really appreciate it if you wouldn't get your hair cut like that, because you really look weird when you cut your hair off like So I think there's some lessons to be learned in all of that. So if that would,
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at it. I would love to hear what you have to say.
called Gleaning Mustard Seeds. And
Okay. Roger and I, when we were at Lipscomb, we had a lot of classes under Marlon Conley, and he used to talk about writing down some of the little his sayings, and he was a really master illustrator.
Yes.
And I'm sad that he never did. And he had a brilliant mind, and I wish he had.
Yeah.
So I think what you're doing is wise.
Well, are you going to be at Polishing the Pulpit?
Yes, sir.
Lord, well, for the first time in the history of the world, I'm going next Thursday. I get a week off a month doing interim ministry, and I usually have a gospel meeting or something. And I was unemployed for a year and a half after the last one. And so I went ahead and scheduled Polishing the Pulpit. So my wife and I are planning to be there the whole week. I'd like to see you and see how things are going.
Yeah, I'd like to see you. You'll be there
Thursday through the next Wednesday.
Okay, I should be there Friday throughout the week, so I'll definitely look for you.
Yeah, you got my phone number. You got my.
Sorry, go ahead.
I do not. I can get it from Roger.
Let me write your phone number down or email. Give me your email.
Yes, sir. It's M.D. as in Dwayne, Hickson, Hixson, at hotmail.com.
And that's spelled M-A-I-L and not M-A-L-E.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah,
I heard some women thought it was Hotmail.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you said that. I've heard, I had somebody say that to me one day, and it took me by surprise, like, oh, okay.
What's your phone number?
901
901
301
301
5767.
I got two blogs that I write. One's called New Shepherd's Orientation. The other one is called Between Preachers, and I'll send you all these links.
I'd love to have it.
And if you get into shopping, I've got one on Between Preachers. It's called The Search. It's on the menu right up at the top if you're on a computer. Okay. It's got half a page for churches looking for preachers, and the bottom side, preachers looking for churches.
Okay.
It'll tell you what folks are going to ask you and what you need to ask them, how to check references on churches, and all that kind of stuff.
You may need to add 2 preacher names. Well,
I'll be thinking about you. Why don't we pray before we go?
Yes, that sounds good. Thank you.
Father, this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Thank you, Father. It's amazing the kind of technology we have that we can talk to each other and to millions of other people. Thank you what Mike and Roger and many others are doing and using that to go over the ocean and over thousands of miles to teach and train other people. Thank you for being able to use that for your cause. We pray for Mike and the situation he's in at this time. We pray for those elders there. Help them to get the help that they need and help that church to be what it needs to be and flourish. Pray that you'll bless Polishing the Pulpit and every good work, and bless us as we serve you. Bless our families in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.